I stood at the kitchen counter, the aroma of sautéed garlic drifting through the air, mingling with the scent of fresh basil I had picked up from the market earlier. As a graphic designer living in the heart of Madrid, I often found solace in the colors and textures of my work. But today the vibrant hues of my creativity felt muted, overshadowed by an unsettling sense of monotony that had crept into my life. Tomás, my husband, was once my muse, but lately he had become more of a shadow, returning home late from work, his mind consumed by blueprints and deadlines. Clara, he had called out earlier, his voice echoing from the hallway as I prepared dinner. I'm going to be late again. Just a few more hours. The door clicked shut behind him, leaving me alone in the dim light of our apartment, surrounded by the mundane chaos of unwashed dishes and scattered design sketches. I sighed, stirring the pasta in the pot, my mind drifting to the vibrant streets outside, bustling with laughter and life. I glanced at the clock, its hands ticking away the minutes. I remembered how we used to explore the city together, hand in hand, sharing dreams and stolen kisses. Now it felt as if we were mere roommates, existing in the same space but worlds apart. I set the table for one, the clink of the cutlery a solitary reminder of my isolation. Just as I was about to lose myself in thoughts of our fading connection, a knock on the door startled me. I opened it to find Diego, my neighbor from across the hall, leaning casually against the doorframe, a sketchbook tucked under his arm. He flashed a charming smile that sent a flutter through my chest. "Hey Clara," he greeted, his voice warm and inviting. "I just finished a new piece and I thought you might want to take a look." I hesitated for a moment, glancing back at the half-prepared dinner. I'm in the middle of making dinner," I replied, feeling a strange pull toward him, an itch of curiosity I couldn't quite scratch. "Come on, just a quick peek. I promise I won't bite." His eyes sparkled with mischief, and I felt my resolve begin to crumble. "All right, just for a minute," I conceded, stepping aside to let him in. The moment he crossed the threshold, the air seemed to shift, charged with an energy I hadn't felt in a long time. In my small living room, Diego spread out his sketches, whimsical drawings that danced with life. As I admired his work, we chatted effortlessly, his passion for art igniting something within me. "You have such a wonderful eye for detail," I complimented, genuinely impressed. "Thanks. But it's all about feeling, you know? Art should evoke something deep inside you," he said, leaning closer, his proximity making my heart race. There was a spark, an unspoken chemistry that hung between us, tempting me to lean into it. "Yeah, I guess I've lost that feeling lately," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "Everything feels routine." Diego's expression softened, and for a moment, I felt seen in a way I hadn't experienced in ages. "Maybe you just need to shake things up a bit. Life's too short to be stuck in a rut." His words resonated, but I quickly reminded myself of my commitment to Tomás. "You're right," I said, forcing a smile. "But I need to focus on my responsibilities." As Diego packed up his sketches, I felt an unexpected pang of disappointment. "Thanks for sharing your art with me," I said, trying to hide the lingering connection I felt. "Anytime, Clara. If you ever want to talk or just escape that routine, you know where to find me," he replied, his eyes holding mine for a beat longer than necessary. I nodded, trying to shake off the warmth that flooded my cheeks as he left. Just as I closed the door, I heard Tomás's key turning in the lock, his heavy footsteps echoing in the hallway. "Clara, I'm home," he called, his voice drawing me back into reality. I hurried to the kitchen, plastering on a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. "Dinner's almost ready," I said, masking the swirling emotions inside me. Tomás entered, looking tired and worn, oblivious to the tumult brewing in my heart. "Great, I'm starving," he replied, dropping his briefcase with a dull thud. As we sat down to eat, the conversation felt strained, as if we were speaking different languages. My thoughts kept drifting back to Diego, the spark of life he had ignited within me, and I felt a growing frustration simmer beneath the surface. "Are you even listening?" Tomás asked, his brow furrowing as I stared blankly at my plate. "Sorry, I was just thinking," I replied, my voice laced with unspoken words. "About work again?" he asked, his tone hinting at annoyance. "No, not work," I said, a hint of defensiveness creeping in. "Just things." "Things? Like what?" But I couldn't voice the tempest of emotions swirling inside me, the guilt of yearning for something more. Instead, I forced a smile and raised my glass. To us, I said, hoping to bridge the chasm that had grown between us, even if just for a moment. As Tomás clinked his glass against mine, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted, that the vibrant streets of Madrid were calling to me in ways I had never anticipated, leaving me hanging on the edge of uncertainty, where desire and loyalty tangled in a web of confusion. As I stood in the courtyard, the sun spilled its golden light over my potted plants, and I felt a sense of calm wash over me. Watering the vibrant flowers had become one of my favorite rituals, a small escape from the chaos of my life with Tomás. Just as I leaned down to adjust the soil around a stubborn petunia, I heard a voice behind me. "Those are looking beautiful, Clara." It was Diego, my neighbor. I turned, and a smile broke out on my face despite the gnawing thoughts about my marriage that clouded my heart. "Thank you. I'm trying to keep them alive," I replied, standing up straight and wiping my hands on my apron. "How's your latest painting coming along?" Diego stepped closer, his eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "It's coming together. I'm really excited about this one. It's inspired by the colors of the city, vibrant and full of life, just like Madrid." He gestured dramatically, as if painting the air with his words. "That sounds amazing," I said, my heart racing at the passion in his voice. "I'd love to see it sometime." "Of course. I'll make sure to invite you to the gallery when it's ready," he said, a teasing smile on his face. "But you should come by my studio first. I could use your eye for design." As he spoke, the tension of my day melted away. Diego had a way of making everything seem brighter, and I was drawn to him like a moth to a flame. We chatted about art, dreams, and the little things that make life beautiful. Each laugh we shared felt electric, and I couldn't help but notice how his gaze lingered on me, just a moment longer than necessary. "I can't believe you've lived here for a year, and we've only just met properly," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Some things are worth the wait," he replied, his tone playful yet sincere. I felt a blush creeping up my cheeks, and I quickly looked away, trying to collect my thoughts. Was I really flirting with my neighbor? My heart raced at the thought, but I pushed it aside. I was a married woman and I loved Tomás, didn't I? The following weekend, Tomás surprised me with a spontaneous getaway. "I thought we could use some time away from the city," he said, his eyes sparkling with excitement as he packed our bags. I should have felt thrilled, but instead a knot formed in my stomach. My thoughts kept drifting to Diego, and how invigorated I felt in his presence. "Sounds great. Where are we going?" I asked, forcing a smile. "A little beach resort. Just the two of us. I want us to relax and reconnect," he said, oblivious to the turmoil brewing inside me. The drive was beautiful, the sun setting in a blaze of oranges and pinks, but the atmosphere between us felt strained. I tried to focus on Tomás, but my mind wandered to Diego's smile, his laughter, the way he made me feel alive. "Are you okay?" Tomás asked, glancing at me. "You seem a bit distant." "I'm fine. Just tired," I replied, avoiding his gaze. I felt guilty for not being fully present, but the more I tried to push Diego out of my mind, the more he invaded my thoughts. Back in Madrid, the elevator doors slid closed behind me, and I took a deep breath. My heart raced as I felt a familiar presence beside me. Diego stepped in just as the doors were closing, and for a brief moment we were alone. The air felt thick with unspoken words, and I could feel the heat radiating between us. "Hey Clara," Diego said softly, his voice low and inviting. "I was hoping to catch you." "Hey," I managed, my pulse quickening. "Did you enjoy your weekend?" he asked, leaning slightly closer. The scent of his cologne enveloped me, and I swallowed hard. "It was nice," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. "But I missed being here." "Really?" he asked, his eyes locking onto mine. "Missed what exactly?" I opened my mouth to respond, but the words caught in my throat. I felt a magnetic pull towards him, something undeniable. In that small, confined space, everything else faded away. It was just the two of us, suspended in time. Before I could think, Diego leaned in, his lips brushing against mine in a soft, tentative kiss. It was electrifying and terrifying all at once. My mind screamed for me to pull away, but my heart betrayed me, craving this moment of connection. "Diego," I started, but he pulled back, his eyes searching mine, filled with a mix of hope and fear. "I shouldn't have done that," he said, his voice strained. But I couldn't help it. I was frozen, caught between exhilaration and guilt. "I'm married," I whispered, the weight of my words settling heavily between us. "I know," he replied, his voice barely a whisper. "But there's something here, Clara. We both feel it." The elevator dinged, the doors sliding open with a soft whoosh, and I stepped out, my heart racing. I felt exhilarated and terrified, a whirlwind of emotions threatening to drown me. I walked away, desperate to process what had just happened, knowing that everything had changed in that brief, breath-stealing moment. The sun was setting over Madrid, casting a warm golden hue through my apartment windows. I sat on the edge of my bed, clutching my phone, the weight of recent events pressing down on me. Diego's kiss echoed in my mind, a fleeting moment that felt both exhilarating and devastating. I needed to talk to someone who could help me untangle the emotions swirling inside me. I picked up my phone and dialed Lucia. She answered on the second ring, her voice bright and cheerful. "Clara. Hey. What's up?" "Lucia, can we meet?" "I really need to talk," I said, my voice tight with anxiety. "Of course. How about that little cafe near your place?" "I'll be there in 20, she replied, sensing the urgency in my tone. I hung up and paced the small room, my heart racing. I felt like a character in a dramatic play, caught between two worlds. My life with Tomás and this unexpected spark with Diego. I had always believed in loyalty, in the sanctity of marriage. Yet here I was grappling with a very real temptation. When Lucia arrived, I ordered a coffee while she opted for tea. We settled into a corner table, the scent of freshly brewed coffee swirling around us, but my stomach churned with nerves. "What's going on, Clara?" she asked, her brow furrowing with concern. I took a deep breath, my hands trembling slightly. "It's about Diego," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. Lucia leaned in closer, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. "What about him?" I hesitated, the gravity of my confession weighing heavily on my chest. "He kissed me," I blurted out, the words tumbling from my lips. Lucia's eyes widened in surprise, and she sat back, letting the revelation sink in. "Oh wow. Clara, that's huge. How do you feel about it?" "I don't know," I exclaimed, running a hand through my hair in frustration. "I love Tomás, but I can't stop thinking about that kiss. Felt alive, you know? Like I was waking up from a long sleep. Do you think this is just a crush? Or is it something deeper?" Lucia probed gently. "Part of me thinks it's a distraction," I admitted, my voice trembling. "But another part. I can't ignore the connection I feel with Diego. It's like he sees me in a way that Tomás hasn't in a long time." Lucia nodded, her expression thoughtful. "Clara, you've been feeling neglected for a while now. Maybe this is your heart's way of telling you something important about your marriage." I sighed, feeling the weight of her words. "But I don't want to hurt Tomás. He works so hard for us. I feel so torn. Maybe it's time to talk to him about how you're feeling," Lucia suggested softly. "A relationship is a two-way street. If you're feeling distant, he might be too. Communication is key." As I mulled over her advice, my stomach twisted at the thought of confronting Tomás. What would I say? How could I possibly explain the turmoil inside me without breaking his heart? "Let's not forget," Lucia continued, breaking me from my thoughts, "that you deserve to be happy too. It's not selfish to want more from your relationship." I nodded, feeling a mix of gratitude and fear. "You're right. I need to figure out what I truly want. Maybe I should talk to Tomás tonight." Lucia smiled encouragingly. "Just be honest. It might not be easy, but it's better than keeping it all bottled up." As we finished our drinks, I felt a flicker of determination rising within me. I had to face this head-on. I owed it to myself and to Tomás to be truthful about my feelings. Later that evening, as I prepared for dinner, the anxiety returned, wrapping around me like a tight corset. Tomás had planned a romantic evening, a desperate attempt to reconnect. But how could I focus on our relationship when my mind was swirling with thoughts of Diego? I arranged the table meticulously, placing the cutlery just right, but my heart wasn't in it. The sound of the key turning in the lock made me jump, and I took a deep breath, plastering a smile on my face as Tomás walked in, looking tired yet hopeful. "Hey love. Dinner smells amazing," he said, wrapping his arms around me, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. "Thanks, Tomás. I wanted tonight to be special," I replied, forcing enthusiasm into my voice. As we sat down, I tried to engage in small talk, but my mind kept drifting back to Diego, to that kiss that had ignited something deep within me. I felt like a fraud smiling across the table while my heart was elsewhere. Clara, is everything okay? You seem a bit distracted, Tomás asked, his brow furrowed with concern. I hesitated, caught between the desire to protect him and the need to be honest. I'm just thinking about work, I lied, but even as the words left my mouth, I could hear the insincerity echoing in my mind. The dinner continued, filled with polite conversation and forced laughter, but I could feel the tension simmering beneath the surface. Just as we finished dessert, my phone buzzed on the table. I glanced down and my heart raced. Diego had sent me a text. Can we talk? I need to see you. In that moment, my decision weighed heavily on me. The choice between loyalty and desire was becoming increasingly impossible to ignore. I looked at Tomás, who was smiling, oblivious to the chaos in my heart, and I realized I was standing on the edge of a precipice, unsure of what awaited me on the other side. Sitting in the quaint cafe on the corner of Calle de Vallehermoso, I could feel my heart racing as I waited for Diego. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the air, mingling with the sweet scent of pastries. My fingers nervously traced the rim of my cup, a stark contrast to the whirlwind of emotions stirring within me. Today was the day I would confront everything I felt, the confusion, the guilt, and that reckless kiss. When Diego finally walked in, the sunlight caught his tousled hair, making him look even more like an artist who had just stepped out of a painting. He scanned the room, his gaze landing on me, and a warm smile broke across his face. I felt a flutter in my stomach, but I quickly reminded myself of the storm brewing beneath the surface. Clara, he greeted as he slid into the seat across from me. I'm glad you came. Me too, I replied, trying to sound casual. I needed to talk. Diego leaned in, his eyes searching mine. About the kiss? I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of my words. Yes, it was unexpected. I didn't know how to react. His expression softened, and he reached out to take my hand. I've been thinking about it a lot. I didn't mean to put you in a difficult position, but I can't deny that I have feelings for you, Clara. My heart raced at his admission. My mind flashed back to that moment in the elevator. The thrill, the danger, the intoxicating chemistry that had ignited between us. I care about you too, Diego, but I'm married. I can't just ignore that. I understand, he said, his voice low and sincere. But can you honestly say you're happy with Tomás? The question hung in the air, heavy and uncomfortable. I bit my lip, contemplating my answer. I thought I was. We've built a life together and I love him. But lately it feels like we're just going through the motions. Diego's eyes sparkled with a mix of hope and longing. Clara, life is too short to settle for what's safe. You deserve to feel alive, to pursue what makes you truly happy. I pulled my hand away, wrestling with the internal battle raging inside me. But what about the commitment I made? The vows I took? Vows should mean something, but what happens when they start to feel like chains? Diego countered, his voice passionate. I don't want to pressure you, but I can't help how I feel. You bring out a side of me I never knew existed. I looked away, my thoughts spiraling as I sipped my coffee, now cold. The cafe buzzed around us, oblivious to the turmoil in my heart. What if this is just a fleeting moment? A distraction from the reality of my life? Then let it be that, he replied, leaning closer. But at least give yourself the chance to explore it. You owe it to yourself. His words resonated deep within me, igniting a flicker of daring I hadn't felt in ages. I wanted to say yes, to surrender to the thrill of what could be, but guilt gnawed at my insides. Just then my phone buzzed in my pocket, breaking the spell. It was a text from Tomás. Can't wait to see you tonight. I have a surprise. Tomás is trying to make things better, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. He's planning something special for us. Diego's expression shifted, a mix of disappointment and understanding. Maybe you should go. But Clara, don't forget about what we talked about. You deserve to be happy. I nodded, the weight of his words settling heavily on my chest as I stood up. I need to figure things out. This is all so complicated. As I left the cafe, the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting a golden hue over the streets of Madrid. I felt conflicted, torn between the life I had built with Tomás and the exhilarating possibilities that Diego offered. Later that evening, Tomás surprised me with tickets to a concert. I thought we could use a night out, he said, his eyes sparkling with excitement. I smiled, but inside my thoughts were elsewhere. Would this evening be enough to mend our fraying relationship? At the concert, the crowd swayed with the rhythm, the music pulsing through me. But as I watched Tomás enjoying himself, I couldn't shake the feeling that my heart was somewhere else entirely. I found myself glancing at my phone, half expecting a message from Diego. The thought of that kiss lingered like a haunting melody in the back of my mind. As the night wore on, I felt a growing unease. Was I being fair to Tomás? Could I truly dismiss what Diego had stirred within me? I forced myself to focus on the melody, but my heart was a battlefield, caught between two worlds. After the concert, as we walked home hand in hand, I felt the weight of my choices pressing down on me. I loved Tomás, but something was shifting inside me, and I didn't know how to stop it. All I knew was that the night was far from over, and decisions loomed ahead, waiting to be made. The night of the exhibition felt alive with possibility, the air thick with excitement and the promise of what was to come. As I strolled through the gallery surrounded by vibrant canvases that seemed to pulse with emotion, my heart raced. Not just from the atmosphere, but from the anticipation of seeing Diego again. I caught sight of him, his dark hair tousled and his eyes sparkling under the soft lights, and I felt an electric jolt of connection. "Clara, you made it!" Diego exclaimed, his voice warm and inviting as he approached me. The way he said my name sent shivers down my spine. "I wouldn't miss it," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. We moved closer to each other, and I couldn't help but notice the way the space between us seemed to shimmer. As the night unfolded, we wandered among the art, engaging in lively discussions about each piece. Diego's passion was contagious, and with every laugh and shared glance, the walls I had built around my heart began to crumble. The thrill of our chemistry was intoxicating, and I found myself wanting more than just conversation. "Come on," he said, pulling me toward a quieter section of the gallery, where the music was soft and the lights dimmer. "I want to show you something special." My heart raced as we stepped away from the crowd. He led me to a painting that was unlike the others, bold strokes of red and gold that seemed to depict a dance of flames. "This one reminds me of you," he said, his gaze intense. "It's full of life and passion." I felt my cheeks flush. "It's beautiful," I admitted, but I was all too aware of the conflict brewing inside me. Before I could voice my concerns, Diego stepped closer, his breath warm against my skin. "Clara, I can't pretend anymore. I've wanted to do this since the moment I met you." And then, in one swift motion, he leaned in and kissed me, his lips soft yet demanding. The world around us faded away, leaving just the two of us suspended in this moment of pure desire. I kissed him back, every worry and guilt momentarily erased by the thrill of what we were sharing. But as the kiss deepened, a wave of guilt crashed over me. I pulled away, breathless, my heart pounding with a mix of exhilaration and dread. "Diego," I stammered, trying to gather my thoughts. "What are we doing?" "I'm married." His expression shifted, the joy in his eyes replaced by concern. "I know, but it feels so right, doesn't it? I can't ignore what's between us." I took a step back, my mind racing. "But Tomás, he deserves better. I've been with him for years. I can't just throw that away." "Clara, life is too short to deny what you truly feel," he said gently, his voice laced with sincerity. "You deserve happiness, and I can see that you're not finding it with him." I swallowed hard, the tension in the air palpable. "What do you want me to say? That I don't care about Tomás? That I want to be with you?" My voice trembled. "Just be honest with yourself," he replied, his eyes searching mine. "You can't keep pretending that everything is fine when it's not." The rest of the night passed in a blur of colors and sounds, but my heart remained heavy. I returned home to an empty apartment, the silence amplifying the storm of emotions within me. Tomás was supposed to be asleep, but as I entered, I found him waiting in the living room, his face etched with concern. "Clara, where were you?" he asked, his tone a mixture of worry and suspicion. I hesitated, the lie bubbling on my lips. "I was working late on a project," I finally said, my heart racing as I avoided his gaze. He studied me for a moment, and I could see the wheels turning in his mind. "You've been distant lately." I just want to know what's going on with you. Nothing's wrong, Tomás. I promise, I replied, forcing a smile even as my insides twisted with guilt. I'm just tired. He nodded slowly, but I could tell that he wasn't convinced. The tension hung in the air, thick and suffocating. I wanted to confess everything, to tell him about the kiss, about Diego, but the words stuck in my throat. Instead, I retreated to our bedroom, leaving Tomás to ponder the unspoken truths that loomed between us. The next morning, I woke to the sound of Tomás moving around the kitchen. The smell of coffee filled the air, but I felt anything but refreshed. I dressed mechanically, my mind still reeling from the events of the previous night. As I sat at the table, Tomás placed a steaming cup in front of me, his expression still troubled. Clara, I need you to be honest with me, he said suddenly, breaking the silence. Is there something you're not telling me? I looked into his eyes, searching for the right answer. No, Tomás. I'm fine, I lied, but the weight of my deceit felt like a leaden anchor in my chest. As I sipped my coffee, I couldn't shake the image of Diego's kiss from my mind, a constant reminder of the thrill and danger that had unexpectedly entered my life. I was trapped between two worlds, and I feared the consequences of the choices I would have to make. The morning light filtered through the sheer curtains of my apartment, casting soft patterns on the walls. My heart felt heavy as I stood in front of the bathroom mirror, brushing my hair. The reflection staring back at me was the same, yet the turmoil inside was anything but familiar. Thoughts of Diego lingered in my mind, but it was Tomás's face that haunted me, confused, hurt, and oblivious to the storm brewing in my heart. Clara, are you ready for breakfast? Tomás called from the kitchen, his voice cheerful. The sound made my stomach twist. I didn't want to face him, not after the night I had spent in Diego's arms, nor after the agonizing decision that lay ahead of me. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the confrontation I had been avoiding. Just a minute, I replied, trying to infuse my voice with a brightness I didn't feel. I quickly finished up and made my way to the kitchen. Tomás was flipping pancakes, the scent wafting through the air, but it felt like a distant memory of happier times. Good morning, he said, placing a plate in front of me. I thought we could have a nice breakfast together. It's been too long since we had a moment like this. I forced a smile, but my mind was elsewhere. Yeah, it has, I murmured, pushing the food around my plate. The silence stretched between us, heavy with unspoken words. Just as I was about to break the silence, I heard a knock on the door. I'll get it, Tomás said, standing up. My heart raced. I wasn't ready for any distractions, especially not Diego. But as he opened the door, my worst fear materialized in the form of Diego, standing there with a concerned look on his face. Clara, can we talk? He asked, his voice low. My stomach dropped. I could feel Tomás's eyes on me, confusion etched on his features. Sure, I replied, glancing at Tomás, who was shifting uncomfortably. Just a minute, okay? Take your time, Tomás said, his tone distant. I could tell he sensed the tension, and it made my heart ache. I led Diego to the balcony, away from prying ears. What's going on? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. I overheard some things, Diego said, his expression serious. I think it's important you know the truth. I frowned, anxiety pooling in my stomach. What do you mean? About Tomás, he paused, taking a deep breath. I think he's been unfaithful to you. The words hit me like a slap. I felt the world tilt beneath me. What? I managed to say, my voice shaking. Are you sure? I heard him talking to Lucia, Diego continued. He mentioned his relationship with a colleague. Clara, I didn't want to believe it, but I can't ignore what I heard. My heart raced as the realization crashed over me. Tomás had been hiding something from me, and I could feel the betrayal seeping into my bones. I need to confront him, I said, determination replacing my earlier fear. As we walked back inside, I felt a mixture of dread and resolve. I had to know the truth, and I would demand it. Tomás looked up as we entered, his brow furrowed with concern. Clara, is everything okay? He asked, glancing between us. No, it's not, I said, my voice firm. We need to talk. Tomás shifted uncomfortably, the unease palpable in the air. About what? About your affair, I stated bluntly, watching as his face fell. Clara, what are you talking about? He stuttered, eyes wide with shock. Diego overheard you talking to Lucia. I want the truth, I demanded, my heart racing. Tomás's expression shifted from confusion to guilt. It's not what you think, he said, raising his hands defensively. Then tell me what I should think, Tomás. I yelled, my voice echoing in the small space. Before Tomás could respond, Diego stepped forward, his voice steady. Clara deserves honesty, Tomás. You owe her that much. What's this about, Diego? Tomás snapped, the tension escalating. I'm not just Clara's neighbor, Diego revealed, his voice calm yet firm. I'm your brother, Tomás. I came to Madrid to reconnect with family, and I overheard you. You need to come clean. The room fell silent, my heart racing as the weight of his words sank in. Tomás's face went pale, shock mingling with disbelief. What? No way, he whispered, shaking his head. Yes way, Diego insisted, his gaze unwavering. This isn't just about Clara anymore. You need to be honest with her, and with yourself. I stood there, stunned, caught in a web of betrayal that tangled deeper than I had ever imagined. The revelation hung in the air, thick and heavy, leaving me reeling as I tried to comprehend the implications of what had just been said. In that moment, the lines between love, loyalty, and betrayal blurred, and I was left to navigate a reality I had never anticipated.